Hey guys, welcome to another episode of 234 Essential. My name is Ayomide Tayo, AOT2, and my co-host is here as usual.
And I am Gochi, the Igbo Stallion.
Yep. And today we have a guest with us in the house. So we are 3 people recording this today. Definitely. Live in Lagos as usual. But before we get into our discussion with our guest, if you're a first-time listener, 234 Essential is the podcast that helps you break down Nigerian life and helps you navigate what it means to live in Nigeria, the experience of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Of course, if you're an old-time listener, you know the drill by now. In case you guys don't know, you need a refresher. Fan mail at 234essential.com for fan mail and release therapy also.
Also, follow us on every social media platform at 234 Essential Podcast.
Yeah.
I feel like we started this podcast a little too seriously. It's just like, we just want to get into it.
Okay, sorry. What do you want to say?
No, I don't want to say anything. I'm just like, I feel like, sometimes there's this banter at the beginning
What do you want to
that we
banter
have.
about?
My voice is still bad, so you get what I mean. But we're not bantering about anything. It's okay.
You gotta meet Charlie Poppy and ask him for Tom Tom. Because at this point, I don't understand this throat again.
My president will provide when...
Your president that don't have money for Tom Tom.
No, my president, because I've not told him my problems.
You should know. As a leader, you should know.
He's not, but you can feel everybody's pulse. Do you get what I mean? But I need to go to him.
You sound like a Batified person now, but move on.
You.
Okay.
Oh, that's a terrible comparison.
But my son doesn't sound now, you know.
Never.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Sharp. I mean, sorry for the people that feel bad about that, but no, not Batified in any way. But he's our leader, so anyway. As I rightly said, I think that on this podcast for the longest, we've always been talking about getting somebody on the podcast to talk about mental health. And also, mental health is so big in our conversations these days, especially in past couple of years, say from like 5 to 10, well, would you say 10 years? But in past 5 years, there's been an outburst of Nigerians or a reawakening or a consciousness of Nigerians coming to understand that mental health is as important as anything else, right? And today, we have a guest that is going to take a deep dive, hopefully, into the conversations we're going to be having, talking about the Nigerian reality and how to, as a Nigerian, maintain normalcy as well as our mental health in the craziness that we have in our country. And today we have with us Amanda. Woo! Hey, Amanda.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm very well.
How does it feel to be on 234 Essential?
That's like when NEPA brings lights.
I swear. Or when the TV station goes off.
No, those ones, no, Jesse, don't know. They left the chat. They don't understand what you're saying.
Swear.
They don't understand what you're saying. Just say NEPA.
When they turn off the gen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm actually happy to be here.
Amazing.
It's nice to actually be on the podcast with you, having this conversation. Because you and I can talk. So let's bring our conversation to a place where everybody can be a part of it. So I'm happy I'm here. Thank you for having me.
I love it. I'm so happy you came, and thank you for honoring the invitation.
You're very welcome.
I'll tell you one of the many reasons I wanted you to be here today. 234 Essential, over 40% of our listenership is from outside of Nigeria, the US, Canada, and the UK. And then we have Nigerians here who also listen to 234 Essential. Yeah. And I think that over the years, I remember when you were doing Words as Therapy, there was a time you spoke about city loneliness. And a lot of Nigerians have left the chaos that is Nigeria and moved to cities, proper structured cities, and are also suffering the same
loneliness.
They're suffering so much. So away from now the government being the problem, is now that there's no network to grow into or to affiliate yourself with. So you're living a lonely life, basically. I'm not saying this is the reality for every Nigerian abroad, but that was part of the reasons I brought you, like I wanted you to be on 234, because there's nobody better to have that conversation. Because for what it's worth, I'll give a little bit of context so that you can respond, right? Yeah. Before we dive into the conversation, I'll speak on Amanda's biography first. Amanda Iheme is a licensed clinical psychologist and an architectural photographer in Lagos. She's the clinical director and lead clinical psychologist of Indidi. a private mental health practice where she works with private clients suffering from depression, anxiety, grief, trauma, and existential crisis. Provides psychotherapy and consultation services for corporate firms and facilitates private and public lectures. Now, what Amanda's biography doesn't capture is that not only has Amanda lived in Nigeria, but she has also lived the Nigerian dream, current Nigerian dream. She has left Nigeria and she has come back to Nigeria. So I don't see a better therapist to talk about what we want to talk about today than Amanda, to be honest. She's good for what she is and for the job she does. So Amanda, talk a little bit about that, what I just mentioned, you being in Nigeria and then having to leave Nigeria, and what prompted you to come back?
Yeah.
And also the inspiration for starting your practice. Yes.
Okay.
Indeed.
So one of the major influences for me leaving the country was my father, because when he was looking for school for myself and my elder brother, he was thinking about countries outside Nigeria that he could afford and good education for an affordable price. And keep in mind, this was around like 2008. Dollar was like 100 and something naira to dollar. So
oh my God.
Different time.
Different time.
Very different time. And there wasn't even that much consciousness with us as people as to like the influence of the power of the dollar compared to how much we know it now. So my father had sent my eldest brother to Accra to study, and he was in school. So when it was time for me to go to school as well, he was like, okay, following your brother's footstep. I heard that they're getting good education in Ghana. It's close to home, and I want to expose you. My father intentionally wanted all of his kids to have the experience of living abroad because there was a certain mindset he wanted all of us to
Love that.
So I went to Ghana. I studied psychology, and then I did my bachelor's there. I did my master's degree, and that was when. So his plan was you do your bachelor's either in Nigeria or in Ghana, and then you do your master's abroad, and then you figure out your life from there on your own. That was like he had a whole plan for all his kids, and we pretty much all followed the same pattern. So I did my bachelor's in Ghana, and then I did my master's in Swansea, and then I came back to Nigeria. So that was why I went. Now my experience in Swansea wasn't the best, really. It was very lonely. Dealing with things like the change in the weather, how September by 3:00 everywhere is dark. It's not a conscious thing. And I was remembering something that my partner said to me this morning. It's like, Amanda, you're a plant. You need the sun to survive. Yes. I didn't realize how important that was, the sun, until I had to live in a place where there was no sunlight at all. So I was depressed. It used to rain a lot. It used to get dark quickly. And the environment, I was in a very small town. That's also something to think about. Wales, Swansea does not have a lot of exposure in terms of meeting people of different races and cultures. So no fault to them. It's their experience. So living there, it wasn't like I had like a community to go and join so quickly. So it was around the period when the weather started getting better, the sun was coming out, and I had sort of built a relationship with my housemates that things started to get better for me. So having like a healthy social life, it was like a kind of thing where we'll all just say, let's all go out and have dinner together. And then we'll go to like the cheapest buffet in town and we'll have the nicest meals and we'll take pictures. Or we'll all decide, let's go out to the club together. We'll just wear our jackets, pay for the bus, go down to the street where all the clubs are, drink a little bit, dance a little bit, and go home. Those were good times. So it was, so having like a social, and it was diverse because I was Nigerian, there were 2 Indians, there was a Chinese lady, there was a Brazilian, then we also had a girl who was German, then we had another Chinese, we had another gentleman from a different African country and an Irishman, and then a Nigerian, a Kenyan and Nigerian. So it was a very diverse group of people who all came to study their masters together and happened to live in the same building. So we built a relationship, and we'll go hiking together, we'll travel together. Wow, we really had a friendship. It really helped me get through living there. But after, everyone has to go eventually. So having that social connection helped me acclimatize. So by the end of my program, I had my master's degree. And for me as a person, my plan had always been, I was going to do my master's and after that I get my PhD. So my doctorate would always be like the final or the big major stop. And I did apply for a few doctorates. I applied to school in America. Maybe I was really punching above my weight. I don't know. But there were schools I was interested in going to. I applied to those schools. I even tried to seek one-on-one supervision from university lecturers. People encouraged me to study in the same place I did my master's. But I was like, I'll kill myself. I can't stay here. It's too sad. So, and to then do my PhD there, PhD is already very tough. So I don't want to be in an environment where I'm not happy and then I have to now stay and do a very difficult thing. I'm already doing a difficult thing. So I might as well make my environment easy enough for me to cope with it. So I didn't want to school there. I wanted to move to England, not be in Wales. So I applied and I got rejections. My visa expired. It was around the time when I think it was Theresa that was their prime minister. And after 3 months, if you don't have a job, you're out of the country. So I was working for Zara at the time as a sales assistant on the shop floor. And that was the last job I remember holding. And by January, I just, left the country and came back to Nigeria. So the plan was you come back to Nigeria, you stay for a couple of, weeks or months, get a job. Just after some time, you go back to school. So I always kind of had the idea that I was going to go back to school. But like 2015 came. By the end of 2015, I was like, nah, this is not happening. My life had not moved with the speed that it moved, what I've been familiar with. I was 10 in GSS1. I was 15, turning 16 when I was in my first year university. I'd graduated and done my master's degree by the time I was like 23. So there was a speed with which I was moving through life. And this PhD was out of my control. And it was to be my access to get out of the country. At the same time, I also wanted to build roots because I had schooled in Ghana and I had schooled in Swansea and I'd done my national service in Ibadan. I didn't really have anything to hold me down here apart from my family. So I didn't have like friends that were like consistently in my life that I had formed a relationship with. Like my job experiences were very wishy-washy because, one time you're working as a store counter, then you're also working as a person who washes plates, and at the same time you're volunteering here, and then you're trying to get a better job. So doing all of those things, and even when I was in Cape Coast, I worked at a bank, and I worked at a radio station. Then so I had like I wasn't stable, and there was that yearning for that stability. So I said I was going to stay here and build roots here, but I didn't fathom what that could possibly mean. So by the end of 2015, which was when I came back February of 2015. By the end of 2015, October, I had to start reconciling the fact that I don't think I'm going to be going anywhere, and I need to figure out what I'm doing in the long term. Because by this time, the schools I had applied to for a PhD had pretty much just given me a rejection. Even one of the professors I had conversations with was like, no, she wasn't going to work with me anymore because she was going down a sabbatical or something. So I lost hope and I lost spirit. So I just started to get jobs. So my father was able to get me an internship at Nigerian Breweries where he used to work. Okay. And then he was like, I'm giving
from there.
Well, you figure it out yourself. So from that internship, I got my first proper job at Stanbic IBTC, where I was working as a PA to the head of HR. And then from there, I then applied for a job in Alara. And then after Alara, I started my own thing. So the motivation to start Ndidi was that period from 2015 all the way down to 2017 when Ndidi started. I had also at the same time gone through like my own personal transformation where I had to like deal with like my family issues, my childhood issues, asking myself questions like, okay, you're not defined by your educational accomplishments anymore. So who are you?
Exactly.
Building relationships, having friends, learning what it meant to be an adult, now having to be an actual part of Nigeria. I had to navigate through all that. And trying to survive and thrive also means like your mental health will also come into play. So for me, like things over the years that I hadn't dealt with, I had to now start to deal with them. So in the process of dealing with that and having multiple meltdowns and going to seek psychiatric help, which was unsuccessful for me. I mean, I found someone, but he wasn't compatible with me. The kind of service I was looking for, this warmth and softness, just somebody that would genuinely listen to me, wasn't readily available. And even the environment that I wanted to be giving therapy in, I wanted it to be one that made me feel dignified as a person, even though I was coming to seek help. Not that it's like a wall that's falling apart and there are dusty notes everywhere. Even if you're poor, I don't think that you have to be dirty or disorganized. You can put things in the right places and take care of your space and clean it as often as you can. But he just looked, and the space was so sad and miserable. They didn't smell nice. It was like, I'm trying to get better, but this environment is not inspiring. So I didn't feel like I was getting help there. I took myself out. I was on medication at the time, antidepressants and mood regulators. I stopped them because I was like, there's no way I'm going to be a person who needs pills to be happy. So I'm going to figure it out on my own. And at the same time, while I was doing that, I was also volunteering as a counselor to the NGO Stand to End Rape. This was around 2016.
Okay.
So I was taking 2016, 2017, I was taking care of myself. I was working at Alara, and I was going through those experiences. And after one time in Alara, I always say the moment that NDD came to me that I knew I had to do it was one day I was sitting down with Mrs. F, and we were planning Valentine's Day, and there's just this word that always comes up. She's like, okay, we have to plan for Valentine's Day. We need to get some cake pops. And I was like sitting there on the table, and there was nothing wrong with what was going on. It was perfectly fine. Yeah. But I just had like cake pops, and I'm just writing it down in my notes, and I'm like, wow, I have a master's degree and I'm ordering cake pops. Like, what am I doing with myself? Like, what honestly it was. I think I either wrote in my diary that day that moment was one of the very significant moments where I felt like an actual failure. I felt like I asked myself the question that if I told my professor, who also really helped me with my educational journey in Swansea, I really do appreciate that university system for being able to provide some form of educational support, people you can speak to, and having professors who are genuinely interested in your educational skill, wisdom. So I was like, if I had to tell him what I was doing, would he be proud of me? And I felt genuinely disappointed in myself. And I knew that it was time for me to take a very bold risk, and I had to be very strategic about it. I didn't have to be all willy-nilly. So when that day happened, that February 14th, I went back home. I wrote my resignation letter. I told my parents what I was going to do, because I said that if I was going to build in DD, I'm not going to do the typical do what you want to do and do what your parents want you to do. I'm like, nope, I literally told my dad, I'm going to take a risk on myself. He said, you should be applying to go and learn how to work at Shell. I said, no, I want Shell to come and work with me. I want Shell to pay me to do things for them. That's the dream I'm trying to build. And at that point, I'd sort of done my own healing myself to be able to separate myself from my parents, where when they tell me things like that, I don't see it anymore as them trying to hold me back. Sometimes I just see it as fear, and I know that it's genuine fear, and rather I'll interpret it and say, okay, fine, these things that they're complaining about, do they carry any weight? Are they worth considering? Because you can't block everything out, even if it's not being given to you in the nicest of ways. Sometimes to choose can be given very brutally, but it doesn't mean that there is no truth if truth is there.
Exactly.
So I had to do that part, really take into consideration what they said, thinking about applying. So I did try to work for another psychiatric hospital. So I actually applied for jobs and I went for interviews, and I still have the diary where the interview I went for, it was just such a condescending experience where the people who were interviewing, the doctors, were trying to make it seem like I needed to know that they are above me and I am under. It was one particular man that I'm paying you to do what you need to do. If I say you should do something, you do it. I was just looking, I'm like, when I left that place, I wish I could find. Can I curse?
Yeah,
yes, you can 100%.
Yeah, okay. So, I wish I can. I can definitely find it in one of my diaries where I was ranting about how, fuck that nigga. He doesn't know anything about me or what I'm capable of doing. He's just trying to intimidate me, and that really gave me that resolution to really move forward with Ndidi. So before I left Alara, I remember I'd come up with a name. Ugochi was there that day. Designed my logo, everything, figured out the catchphrase for it, and then I went on Twitter and I put in my bio. At that time I was still on Twitter, so I tweeted, and I'm a clinical psychologist. If you need help, reach out to me. So there was that courage, and then there was also, and it was backed by, I have a degree. It was also backed by, I've had a personal experience of seeking help, and I know what people need, and I want to provide that service and solve that problem and provide a certain kind of care. And then also there was the fact that I was volunteering for STARE, and during that experience I remember working with a client who had experienced a very traumatic situation and I had seen how in 3 sessions I was able to help this person heal. So it was evidence. I was like, Amanda, come on,
you can do it
yourself, you can do it for someone. You have the degree, no one's going to question you. There is a need for this thing. If this thing can change this one person's life, and you know how it was important for you if you had it, there is a market for this. So, and there's nobody in the market who is going to do it the way you're
going to do it. Yes.
So I went into it. And I also have to mention this, that I like business and I like making money. I'm a capitalist. I would say that with
I love it.
I'm a capitalist. I like making money because I want to have independence of power to make decisions and influence my economy. I don't trust the government. So I want to maintain some financial control. So there is a part of me that loves running business. I like administrative work. I like sitting down to create systems and processes and because
structures.
and structures and strategize. It's so much fun for me. I don't read nonfiction. So I don't read fiction. So like I'm that very realistic type of person. So all of these things mixed in together pretty much took me down the path of let's build something that people would want to engage in. So Ndidi started in February of 2017. So by February of 2024, we would have been running for about 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so like the business I started on a chair in my room now is a team of different people who work with me. That's a very long answer.
I like this. Yeah, interviewer's dream. Yeah, interviewer's dream. Not like, how has you been? You've been fine. Nah. So, so since you started, like, how has it been? Because, like Ugochi mentioned, it seems there's like an awakening about mental health in Nigeria, but I'm seeing that only from social media. Is there like a reality that people really want to deal with issues that has been seen as taboo or we've kept under the carpet for a long time in Nigeria? What will you say? Like, what will you say has been the patronage? Like, been like?
It's actually been good. There are people want help. Nigerians want to get better, and this is not just simply for the fact that I'm seeing work. This is also because my colleagues are working too. So it's not, there are people who are employed. People are constantly every day seeking help, looking for help. And you can't have just one flavor of therapists. You need a variety to find who works best with you. I'm sure there are people who they had sessions with me and it didn't work, but with somebody else it's like amazing. So you need to have that option of who to choose from. So not everybody, only me cannot take care of like 200 million people. So people are coming up to it. Is it as, I don't know what the impression is like on social media, considering Twitter is different from Instagram and not Twitter.
Yeah, different.
Yes. And also the things that people are people saying go to therapy, I'm going to therapy, or are they saying mental health matters? Because those are different things. Some people have the awareness of your mental health is important and you need to do things to take care of your mental health. Then there's a different set of people who have moved from a place of, I know mental health matters, but mental health mattering means I actually have to take care of my mental health. And then you have people who can afford it, and then and people who have access to it. So a lot of Nigerians are still in that stage where they are coming into the awareness that mental health matters. So it's still trickling, because the more people have the knowledge, the more they're willing to buy the product. So it's trickling like that. Awareness has created more people coming in. So, but are they the same? I can't tell. But you can take note of it if you pay attention to that particular thing. What are they saying? Are they saying that they're going to therapy? Are they telling people to go to therapy? Are they buying therapy for people? What are they doing as well? Or are they just saying mental health matters? And are they saying it when someone has committed suicide or don't cause harm to themselves? During which times do they speak about it? Or even, make it a part of their lives? I think that could also be a way of assessing.
No, okay.
I have 2 questions.
Go ahead.
One being, you mentioned psychiatry in your explanation, because what I thought was that there was a difference between psychotherapy and visiting a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Right? That's one. I know there are different forms of therapy. And so when people say, oh, go for therapy these days, in my mind, I'm just like, which one are you going for? Is it psychotherapy?
Yeah.
Or are you going for aromatherapy?
Yeah.
There are different types of therapies, right? So first of all, the differentiation between psychotherapy and psychiatry.
Yeah.
And then how has it been running a business, SME, startup in Nigeria throughout these years, for the past 7 years?
Okay, so the first question, what is the difference? A psychiatrist is a doctor. Yeah, so you've gone to med school and then you get to the point where you have to do your specialization and you specialize in psychiatry. Now, because you've had that study of human anatomy, and I think it's also part of the course of psychiatry, you also learn about, the prescription of drugs, what drugs to use to treat what particular neurodevelopmental disorder or mood disorder or trauma. So as the psychiatrist is a person who went to medical school, is a doctor, specializes in psychiatry. When you go to see a psychiatrist, they have the capacity to diagnose you. They can also administer drugs for you. They can write prescription for you, and they can refill that prescription for you.
Okay.
And they can also provide you with psychotherapy. Now, psychotherapy is a skill, and the person who offers psychotherapy is a psychotherapist. Okay, so a psychiatrist can give you psychotherapy, and a clinical psychologist can give you psychotherapy, especially if they're trained in their skill they're doing it. So the short form of that, a person who practices psychotherapy is a therapist. And psychotherapy is talk therapy. That is it. The very act of sitting down with one person to talk to them is called psychotherapy. Now, there are many different principles of practicing psychotherapy. You can practice psychotherapy by CBT, which most people are familiar with. That's cognitive behavioral therapy, where the focus is on your action, and your behavior will give you the results you want, the well-being you're looking for. So mind, condition, body. You have Adlerian type of therapy. You have existential therapy, which is focused on providing therapeutic treatment from the perspective of the meaning or the purpose of life, where people can be depressed, but it's not because they don't have certain things or they've gone through traumatic things, but they just can't figure out why they're here. Then you have feminist therapy, which focuses on how social issues are actually the cause of people's mental illnesses. Then you have psychodynamic therapy, which many people are familiar with, which is where we explore your childhood experiences and see how that impacts you as an adult as well. So and also the exploration of your consciousness and your subconscious as a way to help you understand yourself more. So there are different types and principles of psychotherapy that a psychotherapist practices, and a psychiatrist can give you psychotherapy, and a clinical psychologist can give you psychotherapy. Then a clinical psychologist is a person who has gone to study psychology for 4 years, has a bachelor's degree, then studies for a master's in clinical psychology. Specializing in clinical psychology. And some of us take it further down to have a PhD in clinical psychology. When you have a PhD in clinical psychology, we'll call you a doctor. Yeah, because you've gotten your doctorate. So you get called, but if you don't have a PhD, you're just a clinical psychologist. Now, a clinical psychologist can assess you, can diagnose you, can refer you, can provide psychotherapy for you, and recommend even other therapeutic methods. But we can't prescribe drugs, and we can't refill your prescription either. So if I think that a client of mine is going to need drug medication, I'll refer them to a psychiatrist, because that's what it is. Now, you can get therapy and psychiatric care from a psychiatrist, but more often than not, what we tend to see is that sometimes psychiatrists prefer to just refer the client to a psychotherapist, because that is what they're really good at. And that's a focus of their job and such. But some psychiatrists also do offer psychotherapy. So you can have 2 in 1, and you can also have just your psychotherapist. Some people don't need drug therapy. They just want a psychiatrist, clinical psychologist, or a person who practices psychotherapy, a therapist, to work with them. So you get trained in the art of psychotherapy. So I think there are some people who just have a bachelor's and then went for training for a psychotherapy certificate. So they are therapists, but they don't have the same. I need to just be 100% sure of what I'm saying, Sha, but that's the difference between it. So I'm a clinical psychologist. I have a master's in clinical psychology. I can diagnose, I can refer and treat mental illnesses, but I can't prescribe drugs. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic.
Does that answer it?
Yeah, 100%.
Very long, detailed answer.
Very needed too, because there's a lot of misconceptions.
Yes.
We're still, as Nigerians, trying to understand
therapy.
That's why exactly I asked you, because I know that you would definitely go into the salad,
Yeah.
And then what has it been like running a business, especially one as particular as yours in Nigeria? What has it been like, the journey?
Over the past 7 years, sometimes I wish I had like a very, oh my God, it was so tough and kind of story. But it's more often than not, it has been a thing of learning how to be consistent and committed to something, even when you don't want to do that thing. And learning that passion can die.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that sometimes what comes to make a dream work is just accountability and responsibility and discipline.
Yes.
You do it because you know it works, it's good, it's functional.
Yes.
It's not because you have any super deep emotional, passionate connection to
Exactly.
it. It can be a very jarring experience. But yes, learning that discipline is important, commitment is important, consistency is power. The ability for you to show up at something consistently every day to make it work is such a powerful thing. It's a very slow moving type of power, and that it should be rewarded by the person who practices and those who observe as well. I've also learned that you have to be strategic. You need to know how to think about money. I've also learned what it means to a certain degree, what it means to run a business in Nigeria, which is that you need to know what's going on in the news. You can't ignore it. Even if you're getting it from multiple sources, you need to know what the government is doing, what people are saying, because that keeps you aware of what's happening. You need to know what's happening in the social world. You need to know what's happening in the economical world. You need to know what's happening in the world around you, because it's going to impact your business. There used to be like that distance before the dollar, people started to see how the dollar was affecting them. Yeah. But if you're going to think of a business and you want to grow it, you need to be aware of how, okay, the finance bill is out. What does that mean for my business? How does it protect me? The mental health bill is out. You need to know about legislations and laws. And I've had to learn about taxes and levies I have to pay to the government and such. So it has opened up my mind as to like what it means to run a business in Nigeria. And then it's been challenging as well, because you know, it's not a straight line. You have successes, you have failures. And that also then brings to conversation what you measure yourself as every year. Is my business making profit, or are we pulling a loss? And what are the things that are contributing to this profit and this loss? It's a passion, but it's a job. When you're growing, you can't grow alone. You have to bring other people on board.
It takes a village.
Yes, so it takes a full team to grow these things. And even the quality of the people you bring also matters. So if you're going to bring people on board, you know that you're not just hiring them, but you're also creating a platform for them to explore themselves and their own capacity as individuals. Maybe somebody thinks that they're really great at, clinical psychology. They don't want the burden of running the practice, but they want to practice. So you doing that, you're creating like opportunities for these people to explore themselves. So you need to also pay them for the work they're doing. So now you have to start thinking about money. So you have to be disciplined around finances to grow finances. You have to be strategic. I think one thing I learned this year is that you don't always have to spend a lot of money to make a lot of money.
Yes.
You just need to know how to put your money in the right places, want to invest into it. And there was something else that one of my first accountants taught me. He was like, we're looking at my book and we're talking about how do I make profit for this year. And I was like, well, maybe I should cut down how much you spend on this and how much you spend. He was like, no, Amanda, when you're trying to grow a business, you don't think about cutting down expenses. You think about making more money.
Yes.
That's a much more positive and abundant way. And I've always carried that with me. So running a business here has also taught me that. Then in customer experience, it's also taught me that just because you're doing a good thing does not mean everybody will respect you. When I go outside and I meet people that have, either helped through like a talk or therapy session, or a family member that's come to meet me, I get all this positive feedback. Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you so much for having Ndidi. Sharon was amazing. I really like talking to Sandra. Like, they're complimenting everybody in the team because the experience was great. But at the same time, that also puts me in a place where I'm like, okay, we're doing something great, right? And at the same time, we're doing something that is necessary. So there's a certain expectation I had in the beginning where I was like, if you're doing a good work, people should always treat you with respect. If you're giving free food out, they should be at least nice to you. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
But I've learned that that's not true. People are people nonetheless, that they would not always hold you to the highest esteem or treat you in the most dignified way.
Yes.
Especially when they are receiving a service from you. And I have also learned not to take that personally, and to also recognize that, they're probably just having a bad day. Or even if they have that bad attitude, they actually still do need help. And I think one person that's really helped me really come to understanding of that is my office manager, Sandra, because she now deals more with the face-to-face, and she always just tells me, whenever it goes beyond her and then touches me and I'm really hurt about it, she'll just be like, Amanda, that's how these people are. You need to also understand that we're dealing with a unique set of people in Nigeria, and there's a certain way that they want to be dealt with or addressed or treated. So what I've just learned is just to, calm them down and then offer them the service that they're looking for. So my customer service experience has grown.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, please, I'm talking too much.
No, free,
No,
please.
be good.
Yeah.
You're good.
So in a country like Nigeria where mental health is still relatively new and all that, how much do you think religion plays into people saying, oh, I need help? Because sometimes we see the church take that role of, oh, let's deal with this person therapy wise and everything, call it counseling.
Yeah.
So how much does that play into that? Is it good? Is it bad? What are your views on it?
I think that it is good, it is bad, and it's also bad because people don't know how the medical and clinical world can work with the spiritual world. They don't put it together. They always see it as things that should be apart from each other. I don't think that religion and science are enemies of each other. I think that they both confirm the existence of each other and are there to support each other because they both matter. It's just the way we wield that power. So yes, having religion is good because people who have faith do well in therapy because they have hope. Your faith gives you hope, which is why, like, in the worst days in the country, people will always still go to church and they'll say, as long as I have God, I'm fine. As long as God is with me, I'm okay. So when that sort of person comes for therapy, you then also, because in therapy, you further instill hope. Yeah? The stress they're going through might affect how much they pray or how often they go to church or how much they engage with their God, the feelings they have towards God, and they wouldn't run away from it. They want to address it. So they will bring that distress into therapy, like, okay, I know that this thing is affecting me, I need to figure it out. So people that have faith, it helps as well because you can rely on their faith to help draw them out of the darkness. And it's like, so sometimes in therapy sessions, I'm referring to like either the Bible, I don't know the Quran very well, so I can't refer to the Quran, but whatever practices that already exist, like in the Muslim religious, we make it a part of, okay, you're praying 5 times a day, these are the things you need to do, but how about we extend that where after your prayer each time you spend like 30 minutes with yourself to just sit down and reflect on yourself and ask this question. So you see how therapy, well-being and spirituality like work hand in hand to improve the individual. So we have, as people talk about astrology, they bring their astrology reports to therapy and we sit down and look at it and use the knowledge of, okay, you've been coming to therapy for a while, I understand your behavior, this is also how it is manifesting itself in this astrological report that you've been given to by your star reader. So there is a way to work together, but people don't know. And the thing about the know part is where instead of religious people to put people in the right direction, that this is beyond faith healing, right? This requires a different type of healing rather than allowing that person to get help or caring for them in that way where you're like, oh, this one don't pass me, or you guys go see doctor. They don't do that. Rather, they just punish the person because it's almost that getting to a point where something is not within your capacity to heal makes you feel like a fraud. I feel like that's what they feel like. They feel like frauds, and as a result, must assert their own power over that. By not allowing you go and seek help from someone who is much more effective than they are, or it's even just their own ignorance, or just belief systems that they hold so dearly that they refuse to see beyond it. So there's a part where having faith helps you heal, but there's also the part where having a religious belief can hinder you from being able to access care, or even giving yourself access to care, the permission to say, I can go seek a therapist, or I can go seek a doctor to help me. But in the middle, there's a place where your spiritual belief and your mental well-being care can work together.
Okay, thanks for that great answer.
People are making me feel like I'm talking too much.
No, you have to talk too much.
Exactly, a therapist. You need to explain.
I don't know if you are aware of something that happened a few weeks ago where a young lady put out a video where her parents were talking to her because she wanted an iPhone 8. How much does the parent-child relationship affect you as an adult?
I love this
because
question.
we're in a country where, so we're in different eras. The era my mother came from, not the same era that I'm from. I don't go the same era my child goes to be from. At the end of the day, that era had set of I call it Victorian era principles: conservative, hard work. This should not be this, and it seems that now parents are saying one language and the children are saying another language. And we now see young people now coming out to say, oh, the way I was raised up was the way that affected me. Can you just shed more light on that?
Okay. So how does the parent-child relationship affect the person you become? It's a significant part of it. Usually people would ask me sometimes, like, what is one thing that you actually treat a lot in Lagos working with Nigerians? And it's really childhood trauma. Some people have experienced very violent types of affection. I don't know if I would even call it affection, but they have experienced violence, either mental, emotional, physical, spiritual violence from a parent or a significant adult in their life growing up.
Or a guardian.
Yeah. And you see, these things have an effect because it's not as if because you can't remember the everyday detail of your childhood that part of your life never happened. There was never a stop or a break in your life where you became like a whole new person. It's just that now as an adult, you just don't have as much consciousness of what your childhood was like. But that does not mean like it never existed. So, does the childhood affect the adulthood? Yes, there's continuity in the entire process. Because the childhood is a part of yourself where you form your identity. You get to know who you are as a person. You get to know the relationship you have with the world. Your mind is just pretty much brand new to this entire world. And you need to root your belief in the world on something. Your parents are literally your anchor to reality. So whatever it is that they say is true to you because they know more than you do in this life. You can imagine even just as an adult how people can use your lack of knowledge and your ignorance to manipulate you. Now imagine being a child where you don't have the capacity to tell that this can even be dangerous sometimes because you're a baby. So you're dealing with parents who will tell you that you're not good enough, or they beat you down, or they compare you to other kids or their siblings, or you witness your parents have like violent relationships. They either talk down at each other or just have very poor habits of communication, or you grew up in a household where there was no intimacy or connection between the family members. That's all you're learning. Like that experience that you're living through, you're learning in that experience. So as you get older, that will be all you know. You're not going to think that, okay, when you grew up in a household where you never learned to be vulnerable, you're going to grow up and just become a vulnerable adult. No, it doesn't work like that. You're not just going to become such a great person. So which is why it's important that as you get older, you're constantly reevaluating the experiences you had as a child and the ways that you even interpreted that experience to define yourself as a person, to know if it is valid or not. Because when you now look at your childhood from the perspective of an adult, you tend to learn that a lot of times it really wasn't about you. And that's what a lot of kids need to know, adult children need to learn, is that a lot of the negative things that happened to them was not a definition of who they were, but more of how that other person was choosing to process their world, and how they treated them. So your childhood does significantly affect. And like the lady that had I never heard the call, I've only just heard people's opinions of it. I've never watched the video. But if she's growing up in a household where her parents can speak to her the way people said her parents spoke to her, then you can only imagine the type of adult that she would be when she gets older. And even how does she think of herself? How does she feel about herself? Because for you to post that kind of video on the internet, there are different things you have to think about. I know that we are a generation that we're in a generation where people just like share everything, but this is not your parents saying something positive to you. This is something your parents saying something negative to you. You have to think about your parents, yourself, what people are going to say, the comments. Even if you're doing that alone because you want to get clout, that very fact that you're thinking in that particular way is a problem, because you've stopped thinking about yourself in an emotional way that protects your own identity and self-worth from, this is what they're giving me at home. You've put yourself out so vulnerable to the world like that. So, and if you're doing it for the intention of getting attention and money, that's an issue. But if you're doing it as a cry for help, that's also an issue. And if you're doing it for any other reason, just that very act of doing that is something that needs to be questioned. Like, why did you think it was okay to put up such a conversation that paints you, your parents, and your family dynamic in a certain kind of light? So you can only imagine how she feels about herself in the first place, to be able to carry out such an action and think like, I can live with the consequences of it, whether it works for me or not. So your childhood matters. It matters a lot more than you think it doesn't.
Okay.
I think my next question, I really like that you answered that, because a lot of people are here walking around with a lot of trauma from childhood. And so taking it away from the family now to the society in general, how is it possible to live a mentally stable life? I don't know if that's the right word. In a country like Nigeria, where things are consistently changing, nothing is set in stone. We lack a lot of structure. We lack a lot of love as a people. We are not naturally vulnerable people. There was a time when they used to say Nigerians are the happiest people alive, right?
Yeah.
Does this mean that we lack the ability to internalize or to reflect on ourselves and our problems? What is it? How do you maintain mental stability in a country like Nigeria? Straight up.
I think that for some people it is accessible and some people it is just not. Like there's a certain experience that you have as a Nigerian where it's like if I told you that you can live a very mentally healthy life, it definitely. Sorry, can I just quickly send this text? Okay.
Mandy, this conversation, I think that I also want us to highlight. You have foreign customers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like for us to touch on those people as well because me, Gonsev, I have friends that are abroad that they are suffering right now.
Yeah.
Because of the switch. So that's where this conversation is going to get to.
Okay.
It's also like opening your business up to that sort of climate as well, or a lot of Nigerians don't know that they can find help here.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, they don't know. If you talk about therapy, it's like so expensive. Okay, keep
That's
going.
what they think. But okay, so let me remember the first. Do you remember the first question you asked?
Yeah, like how do you maintain your mental state in a country like Nigeria?
I will not even bother asking you to maintain your mental state because at that point it's just going to be an insult to you. Like the basic things you need to maintain your mental state does not even exist. So if I'm going to talk to you about anything, I better be bringing, as I'm having that conversation with you about your mental state, I also need to at the same time be feeding you so that you can have the space to be able to think about your life. If I'm probably giving you 1,000 naira for food and then saying, okay, tell me what's been going on. Let that money just soothe your soul, even if it's for that hour. So if I'm going to talk to people about that sort of situation, it's to put it in a situation, in a space where they can access it, but also maybe also access some benefits with it. Then there are some people who are much more fortunate circumstances, and your fortune gets more as you climb up the ladder. So the things you can then do at different levels then expands and goes greater. So yes, I wouldn't be asking someone who has to leave office at 9 p.m. at night and gets to work at 6 a.m. to be doing meditation in the morning. That's not
feasible.
In the bus.
That's not feasible for you in the bus. Like there's too much noise around you.
Exactly.
So the maintenance of your mental health in Nigeria has to be tailored to the economic situation that you're in because you have very limited access to certain things. So for the basic, let's just say people who are just a bit higher than people who have to like go long distances for work, or people who have very access to minimal income. What I'd say is, like, first of all, lean on the NGOs. The mental health NGOs are here to give free care. So on that level, you don't have to worry about a lot of things. You have NGOs that offer free counseling. You have NGOs that offer people to listen to you. You have spaces where you can just rant. Like with the practice, we decided to just create a platform where people just talk about what's going on in their lives. Like, just it's anonymous. We're not asking for your name. We don't want to have your number. Nothing. We just want, just like a text message format. Tell us what's on your mind right now, how you're feeling. Some people just rant. There's always the question of, do you want to get more help? If you don't, then we're going to just connect you to all these free resources. So just creating that channel, that free channel for people to get care. So I'd say take advantage of those NGOs because they can be very helpful.
Do you want to name some of them?
Yes. There's the Anti-Suicide Squad, Anti-Suicide and Depression Squad. There is there is Psych Babble. There's also STARE, which is Stand to End Rape. There's Mentally Aware Nigeria. I think there's Sunshine Series. There's a girl group called Era Wellness. There's also this group that someone just recently told me about called Wanton Women. There is and then there are therapists who also offer like discounts and have talks on Zoom and stuff. Like, join these things. Like they're very accessible. They're on the internet. You can listen to them. YouTube is also a really good resource.
Amazing.
To go to, because you can ask the questions you want to ask about your well-being and get answer to it. I know that even abokis watch YouTube. I see them.
A lot, yeah.
Yes, people watch YouTube on the buses. So the moment you get to be able to educate yourself mentally in that way, Google, YouTube, Quora, the internet, social media platforms, let that be a part of your resource that would at least give you a perspective that you can inculcate into your life to make it softer for you. So free resources. When you get higher and you can afford therapy, then associate the knowledge from those resources with getting professional help to then improve yourself. So taking care of yourself, you need to know what you're able to do.
Yes.
And then fit that into your lifestyle, but always make room for yourself, like looking out for yourself and caring for yourself and taking care of you. Yeah, I don't know if I...
Yeah,
100%.
I want to ask, do you offer couple therapy?
No, I tried it and it's not my thing.
Okay.
Why?
I'm always hard though.
Yeah, because
Really?
if she has said yes, I wanted to ask like how gender roles, gender norms, and expectation for like from both ends, from both genders, affect relationships for modern day Nigerians.
Romantic relationships?
Yeah.
The expectations, of course, yes, they do affect the presence of them and even the lack of them as well does affect Nigerians. Women who are more dominant have their own experiences and type of the issues they face when they try to find a partner. And women who are more submissive also face challenges in terms of trying to find a partner. I think that cuts across is that people have needs, but more often they are not getting the quality of partner that they want.
Yes.
Even if those partners share the same ideals with them, or if they don't also know how to work together. So whether these expectations have like, oh, she can cook, clean, take care of a house, wants to have babies, the traditional wife, or she's a woman who wants to not have kids, or maybe even have kids but have nannies, or have kids and have a job, just like different choices she's making in her life. Trying to find a relationship is difficult. It has its own issues. You also have men who fall in the other category. He either makes money or he doesn't. He can pay my bills or he can't. Or I can afford a car, a house. I can pay for this. I can, get married. I can have kids. I have a good paying job. Or I don't. Either ways, Kasala still there. So I think that apart from the gender expectations that people have, where there is that mismatch, you want something but you're going for something different. There's also that fact that people are also not growing as individuals on their own. They're not learning how to communicate. They don't learn how to create vulnerability, intimate relationships. They are not learning how to cultivate healthy relationships. Dating has become much more of a stressful experience for most people. So there's the human problem before we then even enter the layer of the gender problem.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
That's a crazy problem. Man, I want to ask you a question, really, really random. Before I go into the question I really want to ask you, how are you able to separate your practice from your friendships?
It's not like a complete separation, because the things that make me a good therapist are the things that make me it's who I am. I'm a good listener in therapy, but as a person, I also am a good listener. That's why I'm really good at it. Therapy is just a place for me to just fully hype, increase that thing I'm interested in. It's like what we were talking about earlier, where you said when someone tells you what their business problem is, you automatically want to solve the problem. So when you then put that into like a name and a business, that space gives you the chance to explore those qualities about yourself. So it's the same thing with therapy. So it's never not a part of me. In therapy, of course, I'm being paid to listen, but as my friends are not paying me to listen. So the kind of attention I'll give when I'm listening to my friend, you can't compare it to the same one I'll do in therapy, because I'm not diagnosing anything. So I'm present. Sometimes my attention will go, but I'm coming up, but I'm there for them. So I keep it separate as well, because one of the major things is learning that my job is to help people fix their problems. My friendship is not that. That's not what I'm here for. I'm only here to listen. And if the person needs my advice, they will ask for it. If they didn't ask for it, I might offer. I won't give it. I might offer sometimes, but I wouldn't always be ready to I'm always ready to listen, make an attempt to listen, but I'm not always ready to just swoop in and save someone. So I constantly have to remind myself, it's not my place or my job to try to solve my friends' problems. Yeah, it's just, I'm just here to listen. Yeah.
Amazing. I think that one of the stressors of the average Nigerian is work. Mm-hmm. I think that is where the mental health really they shake.
Yeah.
Because corporate Nigeria, I don't know about any else in the world, but corporate Nigeria is maddening.
Yes.
Away from the commutes to go to work.
Yes.
Away from poor salaries or delayed salaries or no salary. You also have to manage the human relationships in the company.
Yes.
Don't talk about that. Corporate mental health.
Okay. Oh, corporate mental health. I have like two feelings about it.
Tell me.
First one is a positive one and the second is a negative one. So I'll start with the negative one.
Okay.
The negative one is that people are not learning. They're only learning about how to make money, but they're not learning how to create an environment that sustains making money.
God bless you.
Beyonce is Beyonce because Beyonce has a mad team beside her. And there's a certain kind of environment that you have to create for people to be willing to always put their best foot forward and for people to want to stay with you. Work environments here don't think about the culture of the workplace or the environment they create for the individual that works with them. And the people that work there also do not think about how they contribute to the culture that they are a part of. So it's not creating a healthy work culture is not just one person. You can have like an abusive boss, but you can also have an abusive colleague. And you can have a disobedient subordinate or a disrespectful, some just basketballs can hit you from anywhere. So people are just not conscious of what they contribute and how to create and how to sustain. If you don't have a healthy work environment, people are going to be very unhappy, and that unhappiness is going to show. If people had a healthy work environment, like majority, some of the troubles and problems that some of us have as Nigerians will significantly reduce. There are people who, because of their sanity, had to leave their jobs at the risk of going broke because as they were making money, they were like slowly withering away before their own eyes. On top, you want to make money. So yes, your job definitely does affect, and the experiences that people share, the kinds of abuse they experience, the negative, unhealthy, some things that some people's bosses do and say, and I'm just like, damn, man, like, damn, like outside the workplace, we're just people. I feel brushy for rude. Like, but now because now they pay my money. Now why they
you understand? They collect your rubbish.
Like, why would you say that to another person simply because you pay them money? Like, people's egos go into their work so bad.
Yeah.
And being a business owner, it has made me have like a bit of sympathy because when you're working with people too, you also have to collect their own.
Yeah.
And there are some times when my team members will do some things, I'm just like, damn. Like, it's so, and now there are times when I've had bad days. Like, when it gets to a point where I'm just asking my friends, like, was I really a bad person for changing it for them like that? But in the end, something everyone tells me is like, it's necessary. You have to, if you don't push me like that, I'm not gonna grow. Like, but it's just knowing, and I had the exit interview for one of our team members recently, and she was like that, if you don't push me, like, how am I going? Like, it's necessary for you to put me that way. But the thing that she liked was it wasn't destructive criticism. It was constructive. So learning how to give healthy, constructive criticism to people. So yes, I did have a bit of sympathy for the frustrations, but at the same time, I'm like, just because you're frustrated does not mean that you abuse. But then the second thing that makes me happy is that some companies are now opening up more to mental health awareness and offering it as a service to their team members so that if anything is going on or they're having issues, they have a therapist that they can talk to. So there are a few corporate firms I work with. I either go there for classes to talk to their staff members about what does mental health mean, how do you take care of yourself, and it's been very helpful. And people have different questions about, how do I take care of my kids, what am I supposed to do as a man, how can this happen and that. So it opens up the floor for that kind of conversation. And so I love that companies are not running away from that conversation and making it possible. Like, they're thinking about it. Like, companies will come and like, okay, we have a staff member that we know needs your help. So the HR is working hard in Nigeria. So that's it's a shitty work environment, but there are companies who are making a difference.
Yeah. earlier on when you're talking about your story on how you set up your own practice and everything, you spoke about journaling a lot.
Yeah.
I just want you to underline how important it is for people, especially for those who can't really afford, like, therapy. How much journaling helps in balancing you and helping you see things objectively.
Yeah. I think that with journaling, it helps to pair journaling with self-reflection. If not, you're just journaling,
writing things down.
Yeah, you're just documenting your life, literally. Just writing us a very nice little novel that we might read after you die. So it helps to pair journaling with active self-reflection and behavior change. What journaling does is it gives you the space to have a conversation with yourself, and an honest conversation with yourself. You're writing about how your day went and answering. It's not just like a chronicling of your day. It's an active reflection on the things that have happened and why they happened. Why were you angry today? Why were you upset? What were the things? How did you react to them? So asking yourself tough things about your day, or even writing to yourself about things about your day that's happened and realizations about yourself. So if you come to a certain realization, maybe you realize, okay, I'm a codependent person, or I actually don't know how to deal with confrontation. You don't just write it in your journal and just leave it there. It's like, oh yeah, I journal about not having bad confrontation habits. Okay, now what? Now that you have this awareness of yourself, you have to do something about it, because in that awareness, it's not being able to confront people is holding you back from things that you could have dealt with, relationships that could have been healed, opportunities that could have further pushed on. So you pair that journaling with active behavior change and honesty with yourself and self-reflection. So how do I then become better at communicating and stuff like that? So yeah, that's how journaling helps. Just writing in your book. It's sometimes it's really good. There is healing that comes from just mere expression. Being able to say that I don't like this or I feel this way can itself be the healing you need. But sometimes there's also that need for you to pair that with behavior change, so that you're not just healing, you're also actively growing.
Okay.
I wanted to ask, again, back to the workplace.
Yeah.
How would you advise either first employers to create healthier environments for their work, for their employees? And what do you advise for employees to do to maintain sanity? Or mental health? In a crazy workplace.
Okay, so for the employer, I'd say first you go get therapy, because everything starts from the top. And when you're in therapy, talk to your therapist also about your work, what type of person that you are, and also conduct that assessment with your team. What type of leader are you? Because whatever culture shift you want to make, you need to be aware. You can't just do things because that's what you're supposed to do. You need to do it with some awareness and clarity of mind of what do you want it to be like or look like, and how do I contribute, because you have the most power in that particular environment. So if you're going to steer the ship, you need to know how to steer the ship. So talk about how you are, what are you doing to create, what kind of work environment have you created? Go to therapy for yourself, see the benefit of it. And then you can start off depending on your pocket. For smaller businesses, I'd say that before you go down to the path of offering free therapy to your team, you may not be able to afford it, because each person, you're still going to pay therapy, their fees on their head. What you can start off with is something like a newsletter. Just pay, like in our practice, we have like different packages we give to some people, small businesses, like packages that you can afford. There's a package where you can pay for us to send therapy session letters for your month. Then we can also offer like free screening services, mental health screening for some of your team members. And we can also have like a class that talks to people about their mental health generally. So you do what is affordable to your pocket. It could be maybe anytime they have World Mental Health Day. If you can only afford to get someone to come and talk about mental health on that day, then do just that. If you can create a conversation within your team where, okay, this particular day is going to be dedicated to mental health day, instead of inviting someone to come in, somebody in the team should now lead the conversation about it. It comes at no cost to you. But what it does is there is that intention around creating that awareness of mental health, whilst also taking into consideration how you are showing up as a boss to make that a work environment a mentally healthy one. So doing that, if you can afford more money, then you can invite someone. Then you can then have, okay, let's have a newsletter, let's have mental health screening for some people, let's now pay for people's therapy. So think about what you can do based on what you can afford. There is something that everybody can do. There are NGOs that are willing to offer their services to companies at a super reduced rate just to even provide mental health care. Let's come and talk about it. Let's benefit off each other's platforms, that sort of thing. Sponsor mental health events if you can. Even if it's 20K you're giving or 30, it goes a long way. You can just pay for logistics alone and cover the event.
Yeah.
So it contributes as well what you can. So depends on the level of financial strength you have. Then as the employee, you have to take care of yourself. There are places in your life where your job does not touch you, but if those places are touched, it would affect your work. So things like, are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? Are you exercising? Are the relationships in your life healthy? Your support system, do you have a strong support system? What is your self-esteem like? Do you have boundaries? Do you know how to say yes or no? Can you self-reflect to know what you want so that you're giving your best at work? Do you have morals? Do you have principles? What is your spiritual life like? So caring for yourself as a human being in the areas that your job has nothing to do with is very important, because those are the parts of yourself you would bring to your work where you're able to then say, I'm sorry, but I can't work past 5 p.m. I'm overworked with a lot of things. You can't speak to me that way. I understand where you're coming from, but this is also where I'm coming from. Conflict resolutions, all of these things matter. If every single person is taking care of themselves mentally and emotionally, then, and the company is then making it possible for you to seek added help or even get added information to what you already know, that would be amazing. And if people do have like mental health issues, let there be like a channel that they can follow. Okay, who do I talk to? You speak to this person. If we can't afford a therapist, we'll seek the assistance of an NGO if they can provide counseling, and then you can get help. So yeah.
Amazing.
What are the biggest misconceptions Nigerians have about your job, your line of work?
I don't know. Tell me. What is your biggest misconception about my work? Let me ask you the question.
That we pay you guys just to listen and talk, just to listen to us.
Yeah. So you think I went to school to go and do master's degree because I want to listen to you?
That's discussion.
Okay, you know what? If that is the case, if I tell you I'm depressed, come and talk me out of it.
I can't.
Exactly.
And I tell people that are depressed, that's why you have to go to therapy, bro.
Oh, really? So why are you complaining about?
I cannot afford it. I'm not even trained to do it. Yeah.
Oh, you are answering the very question. Okay. That's why we charge you.
That's more therapy, ladies and gentlemen. Just reverse therapy.
Yeah. So you see, you can't. If somebody comes to you and tells you that they're hearing voices at night, what are you going to do? Do people come and tell you stuff like that? No. When a person is making decisions that are obviously back to back, harming them and harming other people, and they come and talk to you and they tell you, this is what I've been doing and I don't know how to stop it.
I just refer them.
How are you? Who? Who are you going to refer them to?
To the professionals.
Why are we professionals? Because we have
studied.
Exactly. So when we ask you for professional fees, you pay.
Yeah.
That's it. You pay for it. It's not, when people are having, sometimes I'm in therapy sessions and I'm listening to people talk about their issues, and I just know, in a normal conversation, in 1,001 years, you will most likely have never thought of asking your friend the question I just asked. Because your mind would never ever go there.
Yeah.
It's not the way that I'm able to connect people's life history, where they, things they've told me about their childhood from 6 sessions ago, with the behavior they're having now that's just revealing itself because the context has enabled for that particular character to come out. I'm connecting it and helping them make sense of their today and making sure that they're making better so they can see themselves. It's something that they don't even have the consciousness or insight to. Is that the conversation we have with your friend every day?
Nope.
Are you paying that much attention to your friend to know that much about your friend to assist your friend make better decisions?
Your friend will gossip you for outside.
So when I ask you,
see this person, the Chris.
Exactly. So when I put a bill and give you an invoice, you're not just coming to come and sit down and talk to me. That's not what you're doing. That is a very productive, life-altering conversation that we're having for you, and you will pay. My school fees was not cheap.
Not been.
Love it.
It was not.
It's the energy for me.
Yeah.
Mandy. Japa is upon us.
Hallelujah.
There is an exodus in Nigeria. What has been the climate in your practice? What has the climate in your practice been like since the exodus that has happened in Nigeria? So for the people who have stayed back, the people who their loved ones have left, and the ones who have gone out of Nigeria. So people here and people out of Nigeria, I do know that you have customers or you have clients. Maybe not customers. They don't say customers. Sorry, in my profession, it's customer.
Yeah.
But what has it been like having clients who are suffering? So in the Jagba side, loneliness, being away from their network, and then the people they've left behind.
Yeah.
What has that been like, and how can we cope? Because we are actually, a lot of people are dying from loneliness.
Yes. So, lonely. I'm thinking about this now, and part of me is asking a question like, if I've noticed a pattern in my work, if that pattern is that when my clients that are here, Jakpa, the quantity of therapy they receive significantly reduces. I'm thinking about that, actually. That's something I need to pay attention to.
Please let us know the outcome of that survey.
Do the clients I work with at Jackpot, do they continue therapy, or does it significantly reduce? And why does that happen? That's definitely worth. It might be yes, it might be no. But what has the climate being here for work? There's relationships, which are the ones that are most affected. People who are losing friends, that's always a very popular one, and trying to navigate it. And then also the people that are now, even though that distance has been created, there's now that difficulty with sustaining friendships, and how to navigate that. How do I keep my friends? So now there's now more of a conversation around the case for friendships. People now need friends because their friends are not here anymore.
Yes.
And that time difference, they fuck up relationship
terribly.
If they fuck up relationship, die. Because if you fight with your friend, 9 p.m, you they go sleep. Your friend now 5 o'clock when they just they wake up, their eyes shining. That period when you're going to go and sleep between 10 and 6 and don't write message, finish. You go wake up for text message, they see everything, and it's not face. Nobody say if you drive, you can drive to the house and you say, no, it's phone. Yeah, video call. So conflict resolution becomes a bit more difficult for close friendships. So relationships also take a strain. So people come in to figure out how to balance that. My wife is here, my husband is here. Fidelity issues, how do I manage that? How do we open our relationship? Do we leave it closed? Do we even continue the relationship? How do I navigate breakfast? My friends and I are saying we're gonna talk about this, which is called Jackpot breakfast. It's a specific
type of breakfast.
Nobody say the relationship spoiled.
Exactly.
Simply because
separation.
And when the person leaves, because they are going through their own thing that you have no relation to, and Nigeria is still here throwing you the most, then that strain then comes. So for couples to now find that, and even friends and family to find that common ground of communication is hard. So yes, it's been really helping people. Now those who leave, helping them settle in. And that's when I started to think about most of my clients that Jackpot, it's been a while since I've heard from some of them. I was just running through my sheet now, and I've not heard from some of them. I need to go back and see when was the last time they had therapy, because I don't think that it's for increased access to the kind of therapist that works for them. I think cost might have something to do with it, and also survival as well might play a part in it. But I might be wrong. It could also be a thing of maybe just changing environment was much better for them, and then as they felt like they were doing much better taking care of themselves as well. So yeah.
Do you think that has? I don't know if that answers what it's like for people over abroad. There as well.
Yes. Okay. So for people abroad, they are usually people who have left for a while, but then come and then they look for therapy. So the people that I work with that from abroad are people who. Okay, different categories. One, spoke to a friend of theirs that's in Nigeria that knew about our service and referred them. Number two, they were referred by their company that works abroad. So we have companies abroad that have that run mental health services where they are able to connect companies that have a diverse group of clients to therapy practices across the world.
Interesting.
So there are companies like that. And so some people get referred to me through that company, and they may be in Nigeria, they're in Lagos here, but then it's from the US that will then get their referral because of the international company you work with, and then some of them are abroad as well. So we have people who have lived abroad for a while, they're either schooling or working, they reach out for therapy because they've also tried to do therapy abroad, but then it wasn't working because that cultural difference was there and they couldn't really make that relation with their connection with their therapist. So they wanted someone that if they're telling you of a typical Nigerian childhood, you're not saying to them like that's abuse, or you're saying like, oh, that could never possibly happen. Someone who understands what that means as well. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. So some people abroad still do reach out here for therapy sessions. They still want to talk to a therapist here, but I don't think I've seen, the time I saw an increase was during COVID, but since then it's just been the same.
So how did these guys deal with loneliness, that disconnect now? Yeah, I think that's so important because I really want us to talk about that.
That loneliness.
Yes.
No, it takes time. It takes a bit of time because you also have to get used to a lot of things. And it really does bring you up to yourself as a person, like what your social skills are. In Nigeria here, it's really not hard to make friends. If you go for a party, one person is like, this is my sister. People are all on the same table. Like even wedding, they'll all throw all of you. One person is drinking Hennessy. Do you want some? Where's your cup? Let me pour for you. How's your day? That's it. But when you're abroad, there are so many things you have to deal with. First, you become aware that you're black, and then you become aware that you're Nigerian, and then you become aware of your gender in a different way that you never were conscious of it. Then you realize like, okay, the social economic status you have means like you have access to some places and you don't have access to some places, and that is very wide.
Wow.
And then you also have to now get used to either a different language or just a different way of life that people have that would then cause you to even question your own understanding of what life should be like. So you're going through all these changes, you're trying to even understand how the money works, you're also at the same time trying to understand school, and the schooling system is different from what you have because it challenges you to think sometimes, and then you're like, what's all this education I'm doing that I never did when I was at home, or what's all this work I'm doing? So all of those adjustments become very difficult. But if you're able to like push yourself in terms of, you have to now broaden your scope of relationships, try to speak to people at work, or try to, build friendships with people that you go to school with. Come out of your shell, like actively create your own social environment. You're going to be lonely. You can start off with people who come from Nigeria, and you can start off with the locals. I'm always of the opinion that make friends with the locals.
Yeah.
Become a part of the community. Let the people around you know you. The places you go to shop for groceries, greet them all the time. That's how you now start. Before you know it, by the time you have your, this is where I buy my Gary guy, my meat guy, my this person guy, you're already building your community. They know your name. Then you can ask them questions where you show interest in them so they can show interest in you as a person. So dealing with loneliness is actively doing the work to go against that loneliness. That's to build your own environment, and then actively making the effort to keep in touch with the people here as much as people here are making an effort to keep in touch with you.
Yes.
So it can get really sad when you're in school doing DYDX and then your friends at Obi's house, Shali
on a Monday.
On a Monday evening.
On a Monday.
And the music is jamming.
My president.
And you are dealing with cold. Minus 2 degrees. That's, my sweet Lagos.
Oh my God.
Now I like Lagos.
I say.
Yeah. Now put Nigerian flag on your Twitter profile. So you have to maintain like that relationship. Like my friends that have Jackpad will just have moments where you send your 15-minute voice notes, catch up on what has been going on in your life, and you just download everything. I don't hold people to like very strict expectations that you must reply immediately. It's like, no, just reply me when you can. If I want to talk to you between when I sent you the last voice note and this one, I'll text you, Shaba. I'll also remind you like, Baba, listen to my voice notes. So because everyone's going through it. So there has to also be that expansion in the grace that you give yourself.
Exactly.
And the grace that you give to your friends that are here, and the active effort you put into sustaining the old relationships you have and then creating new ones. So you have to actively do it. It's not going to throw itself. I've made friends in restaurants, Danfo boss, my friends have made friends in laundromats, but abroad, it's not easy like that. As you see this person different culture, due to different, like the diversity is real when we think about the cities that we're going to. So building relationships are not that easy. They would not happen to you the way they will happen to you at home. So you have to go to them. So yeah,
I think that adds to what you just said. I think that it's also very important for people to understand that relationships change.
Yeah,
like your relationship will always take a different form. The more you grow, the relationship, like live an open mind for the changes that will happen in the relationship. So because somebody is your best friend and the person has relocated, doesn't mean that both of you be chit-chatting all the time anymore. Leave an open mind to the fact that, okay, now this relationship has taken a new form. Our new channel or medium of communication is over the phone. I need to respect your time. You need to respect my time. This is no more a thing of I'll just barge into your house.
As in, do you understand?
Because I find that a lot of people are strong on they've latched on so tightly to what the relationship used to be, and I'm afraid to embrace the new thing because it's just like, would this person still be my friend? Would they still like me? You know? And I think don't shy away from the difficult conversations. Be very open to as many and hard the conversation may be, be open to it because it's all part of the process, all part of the growth, you know, and keep in touch often, you know, keep in touch often. And that, just to add to that, anyway, that's what I was thinking.
My final question is a little bit of segue. When Ugochi was reading your award-winning bio,
love it,
and she said architectural photography. Architecture
money.
So there was some. I picked up on architecture this year because I'm writing my book. And I've started looking at different architectural styles. So how did you pick that up?
Wow.
Love it.
I'm an architecture pick me, not be me pick up. I'm not even lie. So I did not know that I liked architecture at all. I did not know that I felt passionate about it. For absolutely nothing. It was 2017 as well, when I started in DD, I also said I needed to take my photography seriously. And this was a time when I'd also realized that I really liked the art scene. I think working in Alara sort of also opened my mind in that way to what art could be and photography and the rest. And I was like, I actually do like photography and I want to take it seriously. And I remember someone introduced me, gave me like a chance to have a meeting with, I think it was Papa. I had a meeting with one time when they had
shout out to Papa.
Yeah, major shout out to Papa. Always Papa. Greatest supporter.
I'm telling you, always available.
So I think we sat together and he asked me a question which was where is your work going to? Like, what is your voice? What is your style? You had like all of these pictures and images, but what are you trying to do with it? Like, you have to go and figure it out. Then after that, this was also around the time I met Leki Alabi Sama, and I found out about AAF and Canon as well. And Canon was doing a training where they were teaching people how to use the camera. And, you know, Leki had told me to apply for it one time, and I tried and I didn't get in, I think, or he told me that he was doing another one, I should apply for that one. But I needed to really figure out what it was that I wanted to do. So I went back and I sat down and I looked at my work, and I realized that anytime I had to shoot anything that wasn't architecture, my camera was blurry. I just could not get it right. But the moment I was shooting a building, that was like one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. So one Sunday after church, I said, let me test this out. Took my camera out and walked down Victoria Island. I think it was Bishop Adboya Adeko, where they have that KPMG and my ears. So I was walking there and I was just like, you know, I really like the way this building looks. I took a picture of it and I took a picture of the building next to it. And I just that experience, I think I took a few more photos, but just that walk, just focusing on just buildings. I went home and I was like, first, I like the images. And second of all, I like buildings. And I remember an ex-partner of mine used to tell me, they were like, Amanda, anytime you take pictures of buildings, like they look really good. Like, you know how to photograph buildings. And they showed me one of the buildings I had taken pictures from the balcony of their workplace. And I was like, wait, I actually do have a thing. And I actually do like old buildings.
Yes.
So I was fascinated with old buildings. I was fascinated with Lagos Island and Yaba and everything. But nothing else had put me in a space where I had to meditate on this architecture thing. Nothing until that moment when a few people just sort of, with the comments they made, pushed me in a direction where I was like, okay, let me see what's going on here. So that was how I started. From those two pictures, from KPMG and that Victoria Mall and Abiadeko, I just started taking pictures of buildings. I was like, oh my goodness. And then I realized, like, when you're walking, you're always just looking straight. But when you look up at Lagos, like, there's so much to see.
In the skyline.
The skyline is different and it's constantly changing. And it was so fascinating to me. And there is this whole history of like a whole community and how they had influenced us, and like the evidence of this community's existence. That's like the Afro-Brazilians.
The Afro-Brazilian community.
Buildings that they were talking about.
Yeah.
And that when you had to talk about slave trade, before you got to one, you had Casa de Fernandez, which was a slave house as well.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's like mad. These things that they're talking about in books, they are for real.
We have the timestamps here physically.
Exactly. Like physically, I was blown a fucking way, and I love history. So I was like, wow, my goodness, you're trying to tell me like for real. I know we have that port of no return, but it's all the way in Badagry, but here in Lagos, it was mad. So I was just with the buildings. It was just the buildings, the style, the way they were built, and they were beautiful. Even in their age, they were still
something beautiful. So majestic about them.
And they were refreshing to the eyes. It wasn't just like these clinical buildings we have now, square roofs.
Exactly.
Square,
boring.
Exactly. Minimalism. There's no personality. That time where if your papa won't get you now, drawing would deal on top of the sofa. Everybody's sofa and plain now. So like even the door handle was designed
so much opulence for people back then.
And it wasn't like it was something that was just accessible to only the wealthy people. Even the regular people had that. It was they built their house beautifully. Beauty shade inside. So like it opened me up to like a new part of Lagos. And from reading about, because I didn't study architecture and I was fascinated with Afro-Brazilian buildings, I would do my research. And I think this is by virtue of having a master's degree. You don't just take things for what they are, you want to study. So I found this research article by this lady called Dolapo Majori, who had done her PhD thesis on Afro-Brazilian and Yoruba architecture. I still have not finished that till today.
Wow.
But it's like a full thesis of about 600 and something pages. And I used to read it like constantly to just learn about like the Afro-Brazilian architecture, the history of the Afro-Brazilians and settling in Lagos and such. And it's just having that work that's just focused on architecture just really shows you that architecture is like a way to tell the mindset and the mindset of the people, the spirit of the people, the economy of the people from just the way that they build. Like how even changes in religious practices was also evident in the style of building. I was like, whoa! You don't even understand how much space
the cathedral
exactly the churches you go to, why they were built, what were the things that happened, conversations, the people that came together. It was like all of this, just studying the history of a country's architecture can open up your mind to so many things about that particular building. So because of that, because of its historical significance and meaning and heritage, I was just constantly fascinated with architecture. Not just even the physical building of it, but the theory of it. Why do people build the way they build? What informs their decision to build something? What is the principles of beauty and design and art that goes into the creation of a building? Access to luxury, access to beauty, how space influences emotion, how buildings are just as much as human beings, interdependence of all the different, like architecture has opened me up to thinking about different facets of the
human existence.
Life. Exactly. So I am forever enamored by this particular subject. I don't want to go to school because I don't want to be boxed in by the thought of education, because education has a way of shaping your way of thinking. I like thinking about architecture as an artist and maybe hopefully in the future a researcher as much as I'm a photographer as well. So it's a subject. And then of course I really like photography. I think it's a very beautiful art.
Yes.
I think that, and especially now more so, that people think that because there is social media that the talent of photography has died. No. I refuse to believe that, because if everybody was a photographer, we would live in an entirely different world. And the truth is that it wouldn't really mean anything because everyone can shit. So there's nothing special about it. The fact that there are people who are photographers and they are given awards, or they are printed and published in places, or you go to the museum or you go to an exhibition, even just down the street, you want to hang a picture in your house and look at it and be like, wow, there is a technique, an art, and a skill that goes into creating images that human beings find appealing. It's not just something that anybody can do.
Yeah, it's not.
Even if you can do it, it's not something that everybody who can do it that wants to do it and wants to continue to do it.
And excel at it.
Exactly. It's not everybody wants to. So there are people who do that, and that is an art itself, and it's a very beautiful art. So I love images, I love pictures, I love photography as a medium of, expressing my interest, and I am terribly in love with architecture
and documenting
architecture.
Yes.
I'm in love.
Let's talk about real quick your journey to the MoMA, to the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Shout out to you. Big shout out to you.
Yes.
Because a lot of artists have not had their art or their pieces in the MoMA. And
that's me, little old me.
Do you get what I mean? Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
It was giving Avengers the pictures that we saw. Just like, and shout out to all the other artists that went as well. But talk about that experience. What was it like being in New York? New York has a lot for the art scene.
Yes.
Then being Nigerian and having your work, the pictures you took here in Nigeria, whether it was in Enugu or it was here in Lagos, because I do know you documented other parts of Nigeria in terms of buildings.
Yes.
How was that like for you, having your work at the MoMA, experiencing MoMA, and also being Nigerian and having your work there? How was it for you?
As a Nigerian, it made me feel like, there's a big story, a shift has happened, and I'm part of it. That
Love
was
it.
very nice. It's like it was the first time the MoMA was showing living African artists, and I was part of the living African artists. So I was like, damn, okay.
Amazing.
I didn't really get what it meant until I went to the different levels of the MoMA, and I was seeing the works of other notable American or European artists. Frida Kahlo's work was there, Picasso's work was there, and I was like, I was like, girl, I'm downstairs.
Love it.
I'm down.
Love it
downstairs.
so much.
So it was such an honor. And there is this photographer who is my major mentor. He's dead now. Why is his name just leaving my mouth now?
Photographer, Nigerian.
Yes. No, he's not Nigerian. He's an architecture for Julius Schulman. And I saw his work, the images of places he had shot. I've only ever seen them in books, but then I saw them in print. I cried. I was like, oh my God.
That's amazing.
So it was nice. It was such a nice feeling. I truly respect the MoMA, especially because of how they treated us as artists. I got that baby girl treatment. I feel like an egg. Man, major shout out to Oluremi Onabanjo. From now to forever. I'll always pray for that babe.
In case you guys don't know what the MoMA is, just go and Google it. You can't emphasize how big it is.
Exactly.
It's a physically big place.
Yeah.
So we got there, they got us a hotel, we stayed there a couple of nights. We had the opening, they had private opening, and we had the general opening. And throughout the time when it was open, I tried as much as possible to go in there daily, just to engage with the people. I like talking to people about my art. I give them walk through, people will ask questions and, engage with the work. And just hearing from people's perspective what they perceive the work to be like. And even meeting Brazilians who will come and say, oh my God, I'm a Brazilian and I'm saying this building looks like the building in my own home state.
Wow.
It was nice. And I remember speaking to this woman, and after everything, she asked me so many questions. She was like, oh, I'm Brazilian and I'm an architect. And I like the way you talk about, I love it when architects tell me they like the way I talk about architecture.
Yes.
Because I'm like, yes, because I'm not an architect. So as much as I know that I'm talking about this subject, I also want to know that I'm also respecting the people who are in the craft as well.
Exactly.
Yes, especially because I know that there is a place where I lack. So I'm not trying to be you, but I want you to understand that I also see what you see as well. So so it was a nice experience just engaging with the diverse crowd of people with the work. I think that the one thing that really fascinated me as much was I did a thing where I went to I tried to go to as many museums as possible, but mostly the major ones, the Guggenheim, the Whitney, and I wanted to go to the Met, but I went late, so I missed that. And then also just seeing smaller galleries in the city area that have big open exhibitions going on. it was such a beautiful experience because, and even like attending events that were hosted by artists themselves to gather other artists together to just do art stuff and have a potluck and, you know, network with each other. Just that brief glimpse of the city life was kind of nice because it sort of opened my head to possibilities, that there are so many other things that can happen in this life. And just even knowing that the major museums in New York were started and founded by women was like amazing to me as well. Like, mind blown. So for me, it was like, wow, there's so much you're capable of, and you can actually move things around and change things. And having photography be the thing that is putting Nigeria on the map and African art on the map in this way internationally is such a huge step for us. It's because I tell my friends all the time, like when I go for exhibitions, and I go for quite a number of exhibitions, most of the time you always see paintings and sculptures, but hardly do you see photography. Photography is not an art that is so deeply appreciated in Nigeria by the general public, not just by a select few people who are in the art scene. So just being in that way, just having that attention, felt like, okay, this has given us some sort of credibility, unfortunate as it may be, but it is still a valid form of credibility that we're doing something important, and every story that each of us is telling is also valuable. So because of that, I was like, you know what, we need to like ride on this shit. Like, how do I continue to keep this conversation about Nigerian photography going with the kind of attention that I now have on me? How do I then use this platform to like widen that? So I think the greatest thing I got, as much as this was a thing that showed my work, the thing that was most transformative for me was just how much my mind has been opened. It has yielded so many things for me as a photographer, as an artist. Like, what I thought was my limit has just been shattered and built again. And it's not because there are people coming to hand things to me and saying, no, Amanda, we want you to be a part of that. Nobody's coming to me to chase me down for that. If that's what you thought was happening, like people were just knocking on my door for exhibitions left, right, let me just help you know that that's not happening. What has rather happened is now me wanting to have a much more active role in my career and knowing like there are some stories I want to tell, and I don't just want to tell my own stories. There are artists that I also want to carry along with me to tell that. So how do I open this more to give them what I have? So that it's refreshed my mind. Even the kinds of work I'm doing, pushing me to challenge myself, to want to ask more questions, to want to invest more into my artistry has been the most lasting transformation, and I'm super grateful to.
Amazing.
And even the network of people that I have access to now. So it's beautiful. And I'm really doing my best to sustain those relationships. They must sustain in this life.
See, you must though. Very importantly.
Yeah.
To wrap up, you have a newsletter called Life Shit.
Yes.
And please, can you talk about Life Shit? I think that's what it basically. So,
for anyone who listens to this podcast that has listened to any of my episodes or read any of my newsletter, I'm sorry. I've been going through some shit.
Life shit.
I've been going through some life shit. Honestly. And because of that, I've just consciously said I need to put this podcast on the back burner and this newsletter because I need to get myself together so I can have what
important.
I want. Yeah. So what is life shit about? It's pretty much just talking about some life shit. Things that we experience, but mostly from an emotional and mental point of view. I'm still trying to figure out how to talk about it because I don't want it to rely so much on my work as a therapist. I want it to just come from like a human existential perspective. So I think that for me to be able to access that part of myself, I need to dissociate from my therapist practice part of myself as well. So I'm now in the process of doing that. So I think that by next year, I'll have more space and more opportunity to be able to invest more into the podcast. So newsletter, it's really just about life shit, navigating life shit. We've talked about, sex and porn. I've written about creating ease in your life.
Yes.
I've written about money, how sometimes I write them from a personal
perspective,
like something I'm going through. So today I was asking myself, like, do I have to be going through something to write about something in my newsletter? Is that what this is about now? So, but I'm trying, that's the detachment I need to learn. So I've written about sex, we talked about money, we talked about creating ease in your life, we talked about friendships, we talked about leaving family. And when I say we, I've written a letter to people about it. Leaving your family and loving your family. What is again? Friendships, building friendships as you're an adult. I've talked about, I think, I can't remember what the episodes of the podcast have been about, but yeah, so just some life shit, things that, just like those abstract things that still have power over your life.
Yes.
That are very important, that you need to have that space to think about it. The current one I'm writing, I recently wrote one about being busy.
Yes.
I think that's the one that Anne Gucci talked to, and that writing that particular piece really helped heal me in a way that I didn't even know was possible, because I shame myself a lot for how busy I am. Like when I'm doing things, when people say, you're such a busy person, I'm like, no, I'm not a busy person now. I'm not doing anything. But when I sit down and I assess my life, I work almost every day.
Yeah.
And it's the curse of being an entrepreneur, because when people are sleeping, you have to catch up, and you also have to make money. You have to move. You have to make sure that reports are being handed in, things are flowing in an efficient timeline, and you have to be on top of other people too. And sometimes it requires more than 5 days a week, and the 8 to 5 hours, that 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sometimes it requires your 2 a.m., your 1 a.m., your 3 a.m. so that you can be able to make things happen. Yeah. So I haven't been giving myself grace for that. So I wrote that letter about being busy and accepting that I am in fact a busy person. And I shouldn't be shamed. I should not feel any shame about it. And that has helped me manage my time better. So it's just sharing with people the things I know. The letter I'm currently working on now is called Body Image, where I'm just going to be writing.
Oh my God, that's so important.
Yeah, I'm going to write about how growing up as myself, having that conflict of watching American TV and being told you're not skinny enough, and then being at home and being told that you're overweight. So you're super underweight. So you're like, am I fat or am I skinny? Am I just a person with what is my body? Not knowing how to reconcile the person that you are. And then coming into that place of self-acceptance. What were some of the things that I did to help myself get to that point where important. It didn't matter, what my physical body looked like, but just how I felt about myself.
Yes.
So that's what life shit is. So I'm gonna write about that life shit, body image.
Love it. Yeah. I really love that you've come to this podcast today. I don't know if we covered everything that I imagine that people want to talk about, but I think given the time frame and everything, I think we spoke about a wholesome amount of things, right?
Yeah, we did.
Any mental health advice for Nigerians home and abroad that you think we can practice to keep ourselves sane in light of what's even happening in the world, inflation, wars here and there, conflicts, let me not call it, I don't know, any mental health advice?
You need a support system. So what it takes to create a healthy support system: having good communication skills, learn how to have good conflict resolution, learn how to be an honest version of yourself, to be vulnerable, and to allow for intimacy. If you're going to get through anything in life, you can't do it by yourself.
Very true.
It's very important. So you need to start working on, how do I keep my friendships? How do I be a better friend? How do I be a better partner? How do I be a better parent? How do I be a better child? And really show up for people whilst also prioritizing yourself. We desperately need each other far much more than anything. And having people support you, it's it helps you heal better, and it helps you grow better, because you have people in your corner who are looking out for you. And it's not just about you going to find those people, it's also about you being that person to other people as well. Be a good part of their support system, but build your support system, and then don't run from yourself. That constant self-evaluation and self-reflection, being able to say to yourself, you know what, sometimes I could be a bitch, sometimes I could be rude, sometimes I'm not perfect all the time, and hold yourself accountable for that itself is also quite important as well. So looking out for yourself, self-evaluation, self-reflection, having a support system, have a healthy, as close to healthy morning routine and night routine, a plan for your days. And then also, if you can afford therapy, seek therapy. If you can't, reach out to NGOs, use YouTube and use Google and use Quora as resources to help you improve your own mental well-being, or at least improve the way you think of yourself, irrespective of your socioeconomic status. Yeah.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
Love it. Tito, have you learned anything from our conversation today?
I have.
I don't want to ask you what, but yeah.
Don't ask, because it's not an exam.
We'll talk later.
It's not an exam,
We'll
man.
talk about it later.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for the time.
Yeah.
We know that your time is really, really money.
Literally.
Exactly. Thank you so much for giving us that time, for giving us this time. The tribe is happy. Tribe is grateful. 100%.
Thank you.
Do you want to say anything more?
Thank you for showing up and talking about what you do.
Thank
it's still, even though it's trendy right now, a lot of people still have question marks about it. And I hope that you give some sort of illumination to people who are considering to try it out and everything. So thanks for popping up.
Thank you so much.
I've been such a great guest.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I should get an award.
Yeah.
Not from here. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please follow us on every social media platform at 234 Essential Podcast, and send us family at 234essential.com. Don't forget to be kind today. Thank you guys. Peace out. We out.